Hello and welcome back to another fun episode. I'm Brittany Wolfrom, joined by Jane today from the AWS She Builds team. So we have a fun topic today, Jane, don't we?
We do. I'm really excited. We get to spotlight a really cool initiative we have at AWS.
That's awesome. But before we get started, let's see where everyone's tuning in from today. So Jane, where are you at today?
So I am in North Carolina on the East Coast. How about you, Brittany?
So I'm not normally here. You know, I'm normally my DMV, for folks that don't know. Not the DMV you go to for your license, but the Delaware, Maryland, Virginia area. But today I'm actually joining from San Jose, California in our SJC 38 office. So any food recs for this area, you know me, throw them in. But let's get to where everybody's joining. Let's see your comments. Tell us where you're joining us from. Let us know where you're at, what you're doing, and we will be bringing some special guests on in a moment. But as we're getting into today's episode, we're going to talk about a hot topic. You're probably getting to the point where you're like, Brittany, you talk about AI every day. How is it a hot topic? Well, AI is a hot topic. And then we also have some hot topics within AI. And then we have some really cool programs available for AI in AWS. So if you're following me on that one, we're going to talk about some AI trends. And I'm curious what AI trends you are seeing today. Are you seeing any AI trends in your space? Are you seeing anything kind of explode in those areas where it could be maybe you're seeing some MCP server use, maybe you're seeing some SDK strands, maybe you're seeing some agents. But Jane, what are you seeing today?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like this changes week to week at this point with the pace of innovation. But on the builder side, so I work with a lot of teams that they're trying to figure out like how they can modernize their software development life cycles. So we're having a lot of conversations around things like Q developer and how they can do more like spec-driven coding, how they can do vibe coding, and then how these Gen AI tools can help them process applications and build not just month to month, but literally like in weeks. So the efficiencies they're gaining there. Another big one I've seen would be around AI agents. So with Amazon Bedrock, we now have agents. And so think of rather than having like one foundational model that you have to do all the work, now you can deploy a team of specialized agents that can address more complex workflows.
See, there's so much going on. I feel like from day to day, from customer to customer, you're seeing a ton of different items that way. So
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about a specific one today. But before we talk about one of those specific trends, Jane, we have some people joining us today, don't we?
We do. Yeah. I'd like to introduce some folks we've got. So we have Parmida and Smita. They're two experts from what we call our AWS GenAI Innovation Center. So Parmida Atighechian, she's a senior data scientist at the Generative AI Innovation Center team, and she's leading efforts to bring generative AI to real-world production at scale. And then we also have Smita, so Smita Bailur, and she's an applied data scientist who also works with that team, and she has over 10 years of AI ML experiences, and she focused on building AI systems for our customers as well.
Well, ladies, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you and to chat today. We're going to jump right in. And I know I have tons of questions. Y'all already know that as we prepped for the show because I did ask a lot. But one of the first questions, Parmida, could you tell us a little bit about the vision behind the GenAI Innovation Center and what motivated its creation?
Yeah, so I think the main vision for our center is to enable other companies, which we call customers, from large scale to small scale, to be able to use generative AI in parts of their pipeline or all of their pipeline. So basically like giving hands-on or like some help to be able to kind of like use the generative AI in the way that is possible in production.
Awesome. So let's dive a little bit further into that. How does the team help organizations build their AI capabilities from the ground up?
Yeah, so that is a very good question. It's kind of very, hard when you think about the diversity of the customers we have out there. The way we actually started to work towards that is to give different kind of like support based on the customer's needs. Some of the customers already have some experience with Gen AI, some don't any kind of like experience. And because of that, we would support based on the customer's expertise and what they already have in their pipeline. From advisory to kind of like just give them hints on how to kind of like make what they have a little bit better, to full on kind of capacity building a portion of their pipeline or rebuilding it with generative AI.
Cool. So I guess, sort of, Smita, could you share a little bit more about like what makes the approach of the Gen AI innovation team unique?
Yeah, for sure. So, like Parmida mentioned, right, we work with customers from diverse industry verticals, but we always try to start with a couple different calls with them. One of them we call as diagnostic, where we basically scope out where they're at, what their use cases are, any Gen AI applicability in those use cases, right? And then we follow it up with a longer call, which we call a discovery, where we are scoping out a single use case. And then we try to sort of scope out the technical requirements, their business KPIs, what's their vision for it. Um, this sort of helps us sort of tailor those engagements to each customer, but at the same time, it also gives them a sense of where they want to go with it, what their expectations are, like adjust all of those from the get-go, right? And then it also helps us sort of give them any recommendations if they need it, like any sort of prescriptive, guidance at that point for their long-term vision for the solution, things like that. Like Parmida mentioned, we get customers also at different levels of technical capability. So based on that, we have anything from an advisory to all the way up to like on-site hackathons and build sessions that we do for those customers, right? But for each of those engagements, we try to have regular syncs with them, typically weekly, sometimes bi-weekly. And we try to do we try to work back from them with their requirements, and then we also do like knowledge transfers at the end of each engagement to make sure that they have everything they need to take these solutions to production.
That's awesome. So I love the approach. It's not just like we're going to build a thing, but it's like holistically, how can you support the organization as they dive into things?
Yeah.
Has it evolved over time? Like, did you start out in that way, or what changes have you seen as the team has grown?
So I've actually been with this team a little over a year and a half, and that's when GenAI sort of around that time was when it sort of that was the time of its inception and it started. So when we started, we just had hands-on engagements where we would do the work, like we would have 8-week engagements to 12-week engagements, depending on the use case and complexity, and we would actually go do the work. And then we had some customers come in and say, we know how to do it. It's just that we don't know some base concepts. Can you give us some, tutorials or advice on how to optimize our architectures, solutions? So we started off with advisory engagements. They were like a little far in between at the beginning, but we do a lot of both now. So we do advisories, we do some advisory plus engagements where we're also providing code snippets and other things that can help them sort of accelerate their progress. And then we do like full on hands on engagements where we're building out the solution like a proof of concept, and then they can sort of port it to their production pipelines.
That's awesome. So I know the number one question I always get from my customer when they hear about a new program at AWS is, how do they get started with your program? What is the process? Like, do they reach out to their account team? Do they reach out to a website? Like, what does that look like? Let's get in front of the question. Who would like to go with this one?
I can answer. I think the first step is definitely get in touch with your account manager. They would pretty much like figure out whether this is an engagement that could qualify to talk to our team. There's some like processes to go through to make sure that the engagement is actually fitting certain criteria before our team takes it. But basically that the whole stage is going to be handled by the account team and somebody from our team, usually the strategist, and they basically validate the business and everything. And then afterwards, once the validation is done, then our team takes over, and usually a couple of scientists work on that engagement.
Awesome. I wanted to make sure we answered it before we get into the fun stuff. So you ladies like to build things. We know that. You like to jump into things. And our audience tends to like to build or build with us as we go through things. So I know you have something cool to share with us, and it probably goes along with the summer theme. And I don't know about y'all, but I need to book some travel soon. So can y'all help me out with that?
Yes, I think we're ready to help you out.
Awesome. For those of you who are not following along, that is my cheeky way into introducing the demo that y'all have prepared for us today. So tell us a little bit about the business problem that this would essentially fix for a customer.
Yeah, so I think when Smita and I were talking about what to build for this show, we thought, okay, well, I guess agents are very kind of like trendy. So let's think about like what kind of business problem we can think about. And think about actually, like your websites that you go and like you find your flight and you find your accommodation for traveling, and you're having a destination, and some of these websites also support like checking out different activities that you can do in that destination. And then basically like you can, by searching in those websites, figure out kind of like an itinerary for your travel. Now, as a business owner, let's think that maybe like I'm thinking about, okay, well, how can I actually provide like more personalized features to my kind of like audience? One way would be to start training my different models and like get all these features and really kind of like provide kind of personalized feature for this audience, that audience. But then the other way would be like, now we can actually use agents. And the advantage of using agents would be like, first of all, you're not going to need to train models, maintain those trainings, retrain them with new features that come in. And sometimes you also solve the cold start problem because the new users come in and they can actually provide context about what they prefer just through basically like the prompt that they give to the chatbot. And that prompt could be sometimes like just enough to do that personalization that you need for new kind of like users that come in. So that's what we're trying to solve here. See how we can actually have a personalized itinerary for anybody who comes in and asks for like a plan for their travel destination.
That's awesome. Where are we headed in this travel destination demo?
I guess like what we built, part of what we built is mocked behind the scene. So for flights, if you want to get flight tickets, right now we only are mocking that data, so only certain destinations are available. But essentially, if you just want to get like an itinerary, because we do actually use actually LLM models behind the scene, for general itinerary, you can go anywhere.
That's awesome. Perfect. Well, I know you're going to jump into some of the technical side of it now, so let's jump right in. And let's take a step back. What are we looking at in this window?
Yeah, so in this window, I mean, this is just part of what we implemented, but we're going to go step by step through how to build an agent travel planner for basically this use case that we explain via Strands agents. So the whole kind of like this thing is built with Strands agents. We show how easy it is to plug it in all together and make it work. I think we have like 4 or like 3 specialist agents, and it's like super easy to connect them together and make this whole system work. So that's the whole kind of like scenario. For now, you just see part of it.
Yeah. We have a great question in the chat. Is this an LLM chatbot for a company Or like, what's the difference here? Because I know we've been really heavy on the chatbot scenario. So how would we best explain an agent versus a chatbot?
Yeah, I mean, like chatbots can be also agentic. I guess like maybe we can think about like what's the difference between just LLM chatbot versus like agentic chatbot. Where you think when you think about like LLM chatbot, you're thinking about a large language model with proper system prompt that is really like the system prompt has built in a way that make the LLM to answer specific way to different questions. It has limited capacity based on its knowledge, like word knowledge that it's kind of like learned during training. Sometimes you can modify that knowledge with RAG systems and then feed more information to the context of LLM so that you can get basically more personalized answers. Difference between now like this chatbot versus a chatbot that you build with agents is that now all of a sudden I can add different tools to my LLM. And they're more kind of like they can make decision based on like the question, what tools I'm going to use to gather all those information and then put that all together and prepare kind of like a tailored response. And those tools can be anything from web search, from like flight search, anything that you can think about, like a specific kind of like if you have like a knowledge base for different kind of like for this use case, like different companies like hotels and I don't know, car rentals that work with your company and you have a knowledge base there and you want to actually provide those information, like these all go like as and kind of like tools. And then the agent decides whether for this question, should I go ahead and use this tool and figure out what restaurants I should provide, or should I go do a web search, or should I do this, or should I do the combination of both? So it gives like more autonomy to the LLM to provide more personalized answer.
Awesome. All right, let's jump back in there. I don't see any questions at the moment, so let's see what y'all have created.
Okay, so I'm going to just explain pretty much the syntax and how easy you can put this all together. Afterwards, I'm going to hand it to Smita to talk about like tips and tricks of actually as we were building this demo, things that we encountered and how we fix them. I think that could be super useful for when you build your own first agent. So to start with, of course, we're using Strands. I think the easiest way to start with Strands is to use the agent and tool, basically functionalities. So over the course of this demo, I'm going to build several tools, and then these tools, they can be agents like inside themselves, or they can be just like easily just a function call, right? So tools can be like even agents themselves. They can have like different complexity. And then we're going to have like several agents that use some of these tools. Some of them are tools for the other agents, and then we'll have like an orchestrator that runs the whole thing. So the research agent, this is our first agent. Their focus, the focus of this agent is to, given a country or a destination of flight or like your travel destination, can be city, region, it will research that destination and it will give you the top 3 choices for attractions, sightseeing, and specific kind of like things that you can do as a tourist. Yeah.
So for me, I don't know if anyone else does this. I tend to pine over the destination for months. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now we can do it. Now I can book a trip today for next weekend, or even this weekend, or tomorrow, in a couple of minutes, potentially.
Yes, yes. If our flight part was not mocked, you could have done that with this agent. The flight part is mocked, so we have specific flights. But
flights are the easiest part. The hardest part is figuring out what and when I'm going to do things, and if it's open on certain days and all that fun stuff. So that's awesome. I don't know
Yeah.
about Jane. Seems like she's nodding. Do you do the same?
I was gonna say, like, I'm a big Disney fanatic, and so it's like, and I'm always researching. So I love the idea of if I can have somebody feed me the information or have a system that can do that. With the idea, I'm just sort of thinking through, like, so if I were saying I want to go to Rome next week, for example, like the research agent piece could tell me, like, these are some things you should consider doing in Rome, that sort of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the version that we built does that, but you can, I think like you can definitely go further. Like if you have time to put in, you can go further and actually check like what Brittany mentioned, like check specific museums when they're open, time, and you know, like you can actually tailor this a lot more. I think initially we wanted to do all that, but we didn't have time. So part of it is not there, but it's definitely something that you can do. And that's the beauty of like working with agentic systems.
I think this is perfect. So if any of y'all have gone to DC, you know we have all the Smithsonian Institute, all the museums, the zoo, all that. Some of them require you to get time tickets ahead of time, and they release like a certain amount of them, and they're always booked up. I live in the area, and sometimes I can't get tickets. You would think it would be easier if you lived in the area. So I think this is awesome for that, especially Disney, like you said, Jane. That one is always a big one. But all right, let's jump back into it. Sorry for the sidetrack, but I can't imagine.
That makes it more interesting, right? By the way, I'm looking this way because my screen is this way where I have the demo. So sorry about that if I'm not paying attention. Right, so this will be the first agent. This will be the first agent system prompt. Now I'm gonna just build a simple agent. Usually for the agents, and this is the syntax that goes with Strand agents. That's why I really like them. They're very easy and flexible. Basically you just need a model, a system prompt. These are the first two things that you need to build an agent. Now, further on, we show that you can add tools and other kind of like things. So you can go as complex as you want or as simple as just a model and a system prompt.
So question for you, Smita, do you have a favorite model that you start with when you're doing different build outs, when you're doing this? Or does it depend on what
it's not a favorite model as such, but I try to see what the underlying task is and sort of go from there. Another approach that I usually adopt when I'm trying to sort of experiment, right, to try and optimize for the model itself, I'll try with the best model that I've seen the most accuracy in. So this is typically like I could start off with Nova Pro for most of the text applications, right? Or I might start with Anthropic Claude Sonnet 4. And then the reason I do this is that I want to benchmark this task for the best performance. I don't look at latency or other things. I want to see how accurate of an answer I can get. And then I might try to go to other models to see if I can sort of try and meet this accuracy. But let's say I want to reduce the cost or latency a little bit. Can I still do that is what I try to do. So those are the two models that I typically start off with before I sort of try and move to other models.
Yeah, I ask because that is a question I get way too often. And I'm like, you kind of just start with one, plug and play, see where you want to go, and then you can always change pretty quickly and swap out what you're utilizing. I don't know, chat, how you all are doing it. Do you have a favorite model that you're using? Because I know we can't call it favorites, but it really is a favorite. Like my default is Nova Pro as well. That's just because I really like it. But with last week's announcements, I don't know. We'll see what happens because with Opus coming out and the weighted models now, I'm kind of excited to see how they play into when I'm doing demos. But I wanted to ask that question because I know it comes up a ton. So for those of you who are on, you know the insider secrets now of our experts and what they like to default to.
Yeah, so should we continue?
Yes, let's go. Keep going.
Cool. All right, so this research agent that we define here, now it can actually become a tool. Defining how this can be a tool, it's easy. You can just define a function that calls this research agent behind the scene and just have like this tool on top. So that makes it like super easy to just use a decorator on top of function. And now this is all of a sudden a tool that can be called inside any agentic, any other agent that I define. Now, the second agent is a flight advisor. As I mentioned, this flight advisor, this is just a function that we marked certain limited flights. Behind the scene, it gets an origin, destination, and a date, and it pulls up that information. Again, I use this decorator as tool so that this also is available. Trip planner. Now, this is where things become interesting. So I have defined my system prompt here. Notice that we actually mention in the system prompt how to use different tools that we want to give to this agent. So for this trip planner, we're going to use the research assistant so that we can actually investigate the destination. We're also going to use the weather tool to check the weather information and figure out how the weather is too, so that the trip planner can plan accordingly. For the weather, I think like, let me actually run this. Oops. I think it's super easy. We can share the code later on for folks if they're interested. But because of time, I'm just going to go ahead and go for the main function of weather query. We're calling just an API that provides like the next 5 days of weather for now. You can definitely use other tools that give you more information for this, but same syntax, just to make sure that I ran. All right. And now here is our trip planner. Trip planner, we want to use it as a tool as well. But inside the trip planner, as I mentioned, this is an agent. Notice that we have model system prompt, but now we're giving it some tools too. And weather query and research assistant are going to be two tools that this trip planner is going to use.
And I did throw in our GitHub repository in here. There is a couple of them for weather. I know already, so feel free to explore as you're going into the code.
And the last but most important actually agent is the orchestrator. Orchestrator is where everything comes together. And this agent has access to these different tools that we were kind of like defining in the beginning. So this orchestrator has the most power. For every tool that we will give to this orchestrator, we will put like a specification of when to use this, this specific tool. And I have one line here that if any other question is asked from this orchestrator, I don't want it to answer. I just want this orchestrator to specifically do travel planning for me. So this is one way that you can guardrail your agent or model as well. Otherwise, it will back to kind of like the internal knowledge that it has. All right, so the orchestrator is going to be a simple agent too, but now it has trip planner. Remember that trip planner was an agent with research assistant and weather query, but I want the orchestrator to also have access to research assistant in case somebody just wants to kind of like research a destination without planning. It will have access to flight finder, and it will have a file write so that it can actually write up everything for me and save it in a document.
So that's like a crew of agents if we were
Correct.
to compass it together. I always like to talk about it as a crew because you have the orchestrator or the supervisor kind of holding it all together and calling from the different areas. But it's kind of like when you call a travel agent and then they go in and kind of go, okay, I need to pull weather. Then you do research and tell the travel agent where you want to go and what you want to do. This is kind of encompassing all of that and together as one cohesive experience, we'll call it.
Yes. So I'm going to hand it actually to Smita to explain now the queries that we're testing and things that are happening behind the scene and any tips and tricks.
Awesome. So if you look at the first query that Parmida has on her screen, is asking help with planning a 5-day trip to Spain. And you're also mentioning a date. Now this date, because you're dealing with LLMs here, and we're also providing that extra context when we do the weather, the call to the weather API, we're also giving the LLM what today's date is, what the current time and date is. it's able to also take natural language queries, right? Like you can just say, I want to go next Tuesday. It'll still get that date for you, and then it'll plan accordingly. So you don't have to mention a specific date, but we just wanted to show you the demo with a date in mind. But let's see. So it's running it. So it first realizes that because it has to plan the trip, it's doing a weather fetch for all the 5 days, starting the 18th. And then now it's going to start using the research assistant, start looking for places in Spain. Now it's a wide area, so we've also given it instructions on how it should cover wider, like larger areas, right? So it's looking for the top tourist attractions, and then with those in mind, it starts giving you the weather, and based on what the weather is, it's also giving you the itinerary for those 5 days. So you have day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Again, all the weather information there, as well as what you need to be doing on those days. And then it's giving you the complete itinerary. And then it's also giving you recommendations because we gave it the weather information. It's also giving you a recommendation on what you should concentrate on, what you can pack, that are weather appropriate, things like that. In this case, because we asked it to plan it, it's also writing that whole itinerary and all that information in a file for us. And then it'll give you a final summary. So now let's say I want to do, and I'll pause here if you guys have any questions.
I don't
And
think so, unless
yeah,
Jamie.
I was just gonna say, like, it sort of blew my mind. Like, I was thinking, okay, the idea of like I should go to the museum on the weather day, but even the idea of now I know what to pack, so I'm not bringing 5 umbrellas for my family when it's not gonna rain or something like that. Like, that's
But
really
that also could be another agent that's added, the packing agent. Maybe
Yes.
that's a futuristic
Yeah.
feature add.
Yeah.
I do want to just interrupt for a second. I know we're having some issues with YouTube comments. At the end of the stream, I will personally do a LinkedIn post with all of the links from the repository and tag all of us in that. So for folks that are asking for the GitHub repository, for some reason, I'm unable to post on YouTube at the moment. So we will get that resolved, but we're going to keep going along and we'll get you all the links at the end of the stream.
So we can continue. I just wanted to quickly, before we sort of run this, also wanted to add there that uh, with the conversation that we're having, right, we can add that instruction in. Like, let's say you wanted to keep the weather in mind and also plan, like, okay, it's too cold and cloudy to be outside today. I want to do a museum that day. That's what we would think when we were planning an itinerary, right? So we can give that instruction to the LLM too and have it say, like, based on the weather, plan the itinerary accordingly. So if it sees the weather is really bad on one day, it'll advise you to stay indoors. And then on the nicer, sunnier days, it'll give you like the more outdoorsy things to do, so that we can do it. So the next one, we can run the next query. Now we're switching to a different area. We asked for Spain first, so this time we're switching to Patagonia. And then now we're not specifying any dates, we're just asking for help. So it'll naturally first switch to the research assistant, look for all the different kinds of attractions there, and it'll give you a list, right? And now in this case, because we don't have specific dates, it's looking for right now what the season is. It's giving you that context, right? How winter is in Patagonia, and accordingly planning the rest of the itinerary as well. And this is more like, if you see here, this is more a suggestion because you didn't mention how many days you're staying or, any instructions for how to plan the trip. So it's just giving you a more sort of suggestive itinerary where you can do these things for a few days here and then travel to maybe another region. Patagonia is a pretty large region, so you want to it wants to sort of draw your attention to the different tourism things that you have available there. It's also giving you some suggestions. Right now it's winter, but the best time to visit is actually summer or some like the shoulder times, like the off-peak periods between seasons and things like that. But
and
yeah.
Smita, how would you, I guess, thinking from a customization perspective, because like this is so powerful about, planning, is there, if you were to introduce like a profile of, saying that this person, has a family this size and these ages, and they tend to like to ski, for example, like, are there ways that you could potentially introduce, that level of customization? How would you consider that?
For sure. That can be done in multiple ways, actually. So, if you want to sort of productionize this and you're doing this, let's say, for a host of customers that or users that you already have, you've built up their profiles, right? So, you can have some sort of personalization, like just a simple config file that you've built on their preferences, their typical like past trips, the way they've the number of tickets that they've booked, the size of their family, their kind of events that they've shown preference to. They might have kids, so they try to visit. Like you said, if their kids love going to Disneyland, so they've done like multiple Disneyland trips, right, in the past, things like that. So you can definitely bring that in and have that be an input to your the LLM call along with just your prompt that you're asking, right? When the user says, "I want to go to Florida," then you want to include suggestions for Disneyland there versus if they say let's say they say San Diego, so then they have kids but they might prefer to see other things, so they might say Legoland or SeaWorld or something like that, right? So you can have those trickle in along with the prompts that you're actually providing. That would just take a few changes to the original orchestrator prompt. Also look at these files, which are the preferences of the user, and bring that in along with the user's question. So that's how you would typically do it. But you can also have the user just say it, right? Like, I am going on this trip. I want to plan it out for my kids, and this is my preferences. These are my kids' preferences. How would I pull that in? And that could be an input as well to pull those preferences in.
That's awesome.
Was
Yeah,
that?
they're very flexible, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The way I guess the way we sort of think about designing agentic systems is very simple, similar to how we would design software systems, right? We want to be as modular as possible and bring those modules together in a way that makes sense for the entire solution. In this case, we are showing it like a chatbot where you're asking questions and you're getting all of those verbose responses. But it might just be that you're designing a website actually, and you want the backend to be agentic. So when someone says, I want to go to Spain, you don't want to show all of those itineraries. But when you do use the research agent and get like a few suggestions, you don't have to show all of the suggestions to the user, but you might just, depending on Spain's different attractions, you might just show thumbnails of, hey, this looks interesting. And then you're giving all of those suggestions visually to the user, and the user goes and clicks on the things that he wants to do and then adds it to their itinerary, right? So different ways to pull this into your solution. This is just one way that we are trying to showcase here. But we can run the next one. And I think there's another thing that I want to do. I do want to mention when we are designing agentic systems. And this is something that we did see, like Parmida and I did see even when we were building this system, that large language models and agentic systems, the awesome thing about it is you can talk to them, right? Like you say it, like that was like maybe a barrier to entry before, where you had to know how to code before you could sort of start building these systems and have them understand like complex instructions. Now LLMs can do it. You just have to describe it in words and it'll do it for you, sort of a thing, right? But at the same time, it's also how the LLM is understanding your instructions. So there's this fluidity to it, where the way it's happening in the background, it's trying to semantically match whatever you're saying to its understanding the knowledge that it has, the real world knowledge, and it's trying to sort of map it to a certain meaning. And a lot of times that comes with a lot of fluidity, where this time when you say, I want to research this particular thing, it might not understand it the same way where you say it another time with a slight difference to your input prompt. So the way we pull these things together as well, like when we attach the tools, the right place to attach those tools, it can take some trial and error where you're trying to figure out a good place to attach a tool and make sure it's running in a deterministic way that you want it to. But once you sort of figure it out and you sort of put things in the right place, I think that is a good way to sort of think about building these agentic systems. One thing that we were seeing was, where do we attach this weather tool? Do we attach it directly to the orchestrator and have it access to run the weather tool every time? Or do we attach it to a specific place? And then when we looked at the flow of everything, we realized that the only place where we're mostly using the weather tool is the trip planning agent, right? That's where we need it most. So attaching it directly to the trip planning agent actually streamlined the whole process for us. So that's what I meant when I said it takes a little bit of trial and error to try and figure out a good flow for your agentic system. But once you have the cogs in place, it's like any good software or technology, right? It works like magic. It looks so awesome. And yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to bring up here. But like you can see, we have the Tokyo trip all planned out for you. It pulled out the right flights for you according to your preferences. It pulled out any attractions that you would want to visit during your 3-day stay there, and it's giving you like if you look at the hotel recommendations, it's giving you like different tiers of budget as well, right? Like a budget hotel, a mid-range hotel, and a luxury hotel. So things like that. So you can build that into your system. You can play around with your prompts. You can play around with the entire flow, how you have architected your agentic AI system, and then that'll give you different results, and
So
you
I
can
had to
tailor it
highlight
as we
a
go.
comment on here because I found that the weather information is not always accurate. So carry an umbrella with me everywhere. I don't know where you're based, but if you're based in Seattle, I could 100% see that. But I am one of those people that always has an umbrella too. Weather is what is it? They say it's a likelihood of it happening. Sometimes it's 10%, but then you walk outside and you're like, that should have been. They were missing a zero. It's 100%. It's actually raining already. So I think that's funny that was put there. There's also another question here. Which AWS tools can we use to create and build all of these agents? So what tool are we using?
Yeah, as I explained in the big, sorry, Smita, you wanted to say?
No, go ahead, Parmida.
I just wanted to say in the beginning, we explained that we're using Strands. That is a very flexible kind of package, right? And it has a lot of different functionalities that you can use as you go deeper and deeper in agents. But if you want to start like as your first agentic system, we would definitely recommend to just use agent and tools as we did here in this very simple demo, do a simple thing, see how it works, and then go from there. But yeah, this already is available, and it's very easy to use. I think there's a tutorial that we have in AWS GitHub that we can put the link so that folks can get started on that.
And always better to start with maybe a single agent with a few tools and then start building on top of that. Like I said, if you have multiple things that you try to put together all at once, it can take a while to figure out what the right flow is. So always better to sort of start more small and add to it in units, right? Modularly.
Yep. There's also this really cool guide I just posted on Twitch. It's getting started with the Strands, and it's a step-by-step guide. You can actually see the full architectural there too, to start in a simple way, and then you can add more. I always start with about 2 agents personally, and then kind of go from there. And then, yeah, we can get started from there. And then there is the additional one that we will add in there for GitHub as well. Perfect. I think we're caught up on questions for the moment. There is one question that is career advice that I'm going to hold until the end. So I'm going to let us finish this segment first. Awesome. Smita, back to you.
So yeah, in general, I think that would be my first tip to building agentic systems is start out with one agent. Um, the way you want to think about agentic systems is they are pretty complex, right? It's similar to having built a complex software, like a regular software solution. But when you come to LLMs and agentic systems, there is some fluidity there on how the flow can go. And you always like this system, especially if you're pushing it out to production where multiple users are going to be using them, using your solution, you want to make sure that there's some deterministic sort of path that you follow, especially for common questions, or you can analyze the kind of usage that your solution is going to get, and you know what sort of outcomes you want for each of those inputs, right? So designing the agentic system can take some time there, where you're trying to figure out which tool to attach to which agent and how you're going to use it. And in this one, we showed you like how can you even use other agents as your tools, right? These agents might be calling on other agents, which are then again calling on some other agent, and then finally it ends up at a tool. The difference that I would say between an agent and a tool is the agent is attached directly to an LLM. So the LLM is actually thinking and making intelligent choices for you, whereas a tool is a small piece of code that does something deterministically. So the agent can call here, for example, the weather API tool, which always does the same thing. It's calling on the weather API and getting the weather for a set of a range of dates. But then the travel planning tool sort of decides intelligently, okay, do I need a weather API call at this time? I do, then we call it. If I don't, then I don't call it. So how to tie all of this together? It takes some practice. It take some experience as well. Sometimes when once you've used these agents for a while and you've sort of realized, okay, you get some of these behaviors down, that okay, this agent is probably going to behave in this way, so maybe it's better to attach a certain tool to a sub agent that you're using rather than the orchestrator itself. That those sort of decisions can take some practice and experience with agents. So start off small and build slowly, add on to your system, and then you'll end up with something really, really cool. So yeah, I think that's all I had for to start off with. But if you have any other questions, I can answer them.
I think we're caught up on those questions, but we do have a career question that has come into the chat. And that question is specifically about how can we transition from the developer side to prompt engineer. So who would like to talk about that? I have comments on that too, but we'll leave it to our experts first.
I can comment a little bit. So I'm wondering if this is completely like a career change. But anyways, like prompt engineering, I think the way that I see it is depending on your model, every model has a specification for like best practices of the prompt that you can use. Also, as the models are getting better and better, I think we are developing models in a way that can answer to any sort of prompt more and more. So models are, that's what we call that. Models are becoming more and more kind of like powerful in the sense that they can actually answer to your specific question without you needing to write really like lengthy prompts and like really specific prompts. That being said, still we need to have those prompt engineering best practices for production, because we need to put guardrails, make sure that model doesn't like, you know, spit up certain things that are irrelevant to the production or harmful or not human aligned, right? But I think like best way is to start with one model, be it Nova or like Anthropic, any kind of like provider that you use their models, Llama. Go and check out their best practices. They all have best practices, and try with like one, basically a small kind of chatbot, and like put your first prompt there and try to make it better and better, so that like any kind of like different questions that you ask, it will always like answer in a specific kind of way that you want and within the context.
Yeah, I think the other thing to just add here is if you're trying to transition career-wise, doing that, but also then networking with folks in your prompt engineering areas so they know you're interested, and ask to be assigned to different projects where you get to flex those muscles and stuff like that too. I think it's pretty hot right now. I'm seeing a lot of different threads on different areas about how do I go from the developer role into a prompt engineering role. And just to double down on learning a foundation model, starting with one is awesome, and then leveraging your existing developer skills to then apply those is extremely important. I don't know, anyone else on the have a comment for our developer? All right. So with that, why do these go by so quick? We had extra questions just in case, and we thought we were going to be short on time, and I think we're at a point where we're a little over. Oh, we have some folks joining too that are working on agentic AI for their contact centers. Love that application. That is an awesome one. I'm sure everyone's seeing a little bit of that coming into play too. And then I know we were talking about best practices and understanding. So I do want to highlight the Nova best practices, because this is a great guide to go through if you're getting started. And with that, how does this go by so fast? I don't understand. Every week.
We just started. I'm confused. That's
So,
awesome.
Jane, any final questions for our experts as they're here with us today?
So I'll just ask, like, in general, like, because the space is evolving so quickly, like, do either of you have like kind of some key skills that you want to highlight that have been helpful for you, as you've had to evolve with the technology? Like, so maybe Smita, if you don't mind starting, like, what would you say? What are some skills that you would throw out for the audience that have been important?
Yeah, for sure. That's actually a really good. I think it's also very pertinent to the question that we just covered with like career change and other things, right? I mean, we're all sort of very familiar with the phrase learning on the job, but I feel like it's never been truer, especially with the speed at which AI and generative AI especially is evolving, right? Even like for us in our jobs every day, we are learning new things. We try to experiment and we find new things. Like with experience in working all of these things, I can say that every day I try something out and then I realize this is not how it's been, and that sort of links in my mind to something else that was my understanding, but it's completely different from what I was thinking about it all along, right? And just spending time to regularly upskill and keeping up with the technology, that's been really awesome in like helping me sort of adapt my knowledge and build cool things every day. And I think along with this, just having a sort of knowledge sharing network, find a friend, find someone in your area or your city, find a few people, have meetups, and try to create this network where you can share knowledge along with like building like along with reading technical papers and things like that. And that sort of mindset is really helpful because things are evolving really fast. Like every day there's a new paper on something else that's super cool, and we've come to a point where we say this paper is really old, it came out 2 weeks ago, things like that, right? So so we want to make sure that we adapt that sort of learning mentality and knowledge sharing mentality so that we can learn and grow together. And I think that also helps to move things along as well. Like we're moving really fast, but we can move faster, right? So I think that's really important.
I love that point. And I've got folks that I'm networking with. Like, I would say it always, it's interesting to hear the different viewpoints that and the ways people are using the technology, like that whole, I hadn't thought about that. And what about that? What about you, Parmida? Like, what would you say from a skill perspective, and any additional thoughts?
Honestly, same as Smita, I think the only thing that really helped me and I figured out was to, let's say, live into chaos. Just like really things are going to come at you, take the one that you can and is most relevant and learn it. Also learning projects, that helps a lot. If you want to learn everything, it's impossible with the speed of everything that's going on. So project usually gives a really good structure and also kind of like a limit to not really be exposed to too many things and be able to focus on one thing and learn it properly.
Yeah. So this comment, I think, sums us up pretty well. It's nice to hear that even our experts are still learning new things. For those of you who are not Amazonians and have not heard this, we have a leadership principle called Learn and Be Curious. And I know we are always flexing that muscle. I strive to do 10% of my time every week on that principle of learning something new. And it's the only way we can stay above it. Because just last week in the AI space, we had three major announcements. I would say almost four, because the weighted models on AWS was pretty big. So I think it's just staying on top of it, learning what we can is always going to be something there. Well, and we have somebody that's somebody just finished onboarding agents for a bank using LangGraph. So Yeah, it is a different type of setup, but it's a different use case, I would say, per se. There's a lot of different ways to address these too. So I think it's just AI has so many different applied methods. And if you have a method that works for you, and this is also where I talk to our customers and I'm like, yeah, we can do it here and we can do it here. And let's compare the two against each other,
Yeah.
whether it's strands, agents, or if it's setting it up through LangGraph, definitely different applications there. We are coming up on time, and I know our crew in the background is going to start pulling us off the camera because there are other streams that are about to start happening. So let's do this. Any parting words for the audience from our special guest today?
I think the only thing that I want to say is really like, don't get afraid. I know that's like, we're not used to this. Things are moving super fast and too many things are coming at once every day. Think that everybody is in the same situation. There are too many things to learn, but pick one, stick to it, and then go for the next. Like, just try to kind of like find calm and just continue learning.
Oh, +1.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd agree with Parmida. I think just, and that's really great advice in general, right? Sort of lean into the chaos. Don't try to put yourself in any bucket. Like, don't think of yourself as, hey, this is my background, this is what I need to do. Trying to become a generalist, I think, is an awesome sort of way to think about how things are, right? Both technologically and in general. Try to open up your minds and not put yourself in any buckets. And I think that'll sort of help to sort of go in any direction that you need to. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
Awesome. Jane, any final words from you before I wrap us up?
I love the idea of don't limit yourself. Plus one to all that. Like, don't be afraid to try something new. Even if you fail, you're going to learn something. So just put yourself out there and, you can do it. If you have a goal in mind, you can certainly achieve that.
Awesome. So because we had some technical difficulties, I have already created and posted on LinkedIn with our replay links and tagged all of you lovely ladies. So if anyone needs to go find that, if you are not connected with me on LinkedIn, it's the LinkedIn URL, and then it's Brittany-Wolfrom, my first and last name. But this is the link to the specific article. It has all the links we talked about today. It has the replays. So I know a couple of you were pinging me saying you got in halfway through. Don't worry about it. The replays will be available for you. You can connect with all of us on LinkedIn. And ladies, I cannot thank you enough for coming out of your busy schedules. I know you have very busy schedules. You're working with lots of customers on different projects. So really want to just extend that thank you to just investing in our viewers, investing in us, and teaching us a little bit more, creating a demo for us, and having fun with us for the last hour. Can you believe it was a full hour already?
Yeah, it was really fun. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks
Well,
for having us.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. And we will be back next week with another set of special guests and some cool topics. You won't see Jane or I, but you may be seeing one of our partners in crime from the AWS She Builds team. Same time, same place. With that, thank you all and see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.